Well, in what appears as another attack on President Tinubu's policies, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says there is a striking disparity between President Tinubu's economic policies and the alternatives he proposed. Atiku, however, noted that in contrast, his team not only devised a comprehensive recovery plan, but also welcomed significant input from other Nigerians. In a statement he personally authored, Atiku said the Tinubu administration hurriedly ascended to power without a coherent plan. Atiku queried the federal government's policies on taxation, stating that Nigeria cannot hope to tax its way out of the economic crisis. On Sunday, the president hit back at Atiku's first criticisms, describing his remarks as empty and lacking substance. Defending Tinubu's reforms, including the removal of fuel subsidies, currency adjustments, and electricity tariff hikes, the presidency said these are essential steps to address Nigeria's economic crisis, paired with social support measures aimed at protecting vulnerable Nigerians. Let's bring in development economist Professor Ken Ike. Good to see you, and thanks as always for your time. Well, the back and forth, that is why we love democracy, and Atiku is playing the opposition, giving an alternative. But again, you're the expert. Help us make sense of what both are saying. You've seen both documents leading up to the election, and they're still saying, hey, wait a minute, you should have come to mind as a better alternative. Help us explain quickly, if we can do this briefly, looking at the key components of the two documents of Tinubu and Atiku.
The good thing about democracy is that it's open, it's inclusive. All shades of opinion should be allowed around the table. You heard Kamala Harris said she would even give tea, offer a cup of tea to her opponents on the table. So it is very important that we don't deny any opportunity to enrich the debate. And we must allow extremists of whatever persuasion, whatever they have, we should allow that to come forward. There's no shortage of good ideas. And secondly, irrespective, Nigeria is noted to have good, excellent ideas, but where we lack are two things. One, the political will, and then also the capacity to deliver. What I've seen, this administration has not actually lacked political will, because the president takes his time, but when he puts his feet down, that is expression of political will. You could see that when he resolved the Dangote issue. You see that when he says fuel must be sold in Naira and then crude will be. These are far-reaching decisions. It's like Buhari took a decision to sign the PIA over 20 years. We were going forward and backwards. I got tired of giving lectures on that. I just left them on their own. He signed it. And so there are certain expressions of that political will that moves the entire agenda forward. And then the rest of it is how much will your ministers do? What about the regulation? What about the delivery? So that's another part of it. But in terms of the specifics of what Atiku put on the table, there are some of them that have a lot of merit, but there are some of them that I really cannot agree with. For example, consultation is everything. Multi-stakeholder consultation is everything. You can't do things without consulting the people who have to own it and then run with it. So, but whenever your exigencies permit you to do otherwise, you have to quickly try and correct and then bring people back around the table and try to make up. So that is what has happened. But it's wrong for people to blame President Tinubu for removing subsidy. He did not remove subsidy. The previous administration removed subsidy in the budget, so it wasn't there. So what you were asking him to do was to come and restate subsidy that has already been removed from future budget.
Now let me come in there very quickly. Let me come in there on the issue of removal of subsidy. What Atiku is saying is that his approach would have been more gradualist. He would have come up with a strategy that gradually removes, whether it's fuel subsidy you're talking about or the floating of the Naira. In fact, he went as far as saying European countries, for example, it could take like 5 years, for you to fully implement any policy in a way that would not, affect the people. Okay,
where I disagree with that bit is because, remember in 2012, Jonathan tried it, he was overwhelmed. So there have been several attempts to do this. Is a work in progress. But when the president entered into office, he knew that this is a decision that has to be taken. Everybody's in agreement that that step has to be taken. And then you are now asking him to come and restate something that a previous administration has actually didn't provide for. He didn't want to do that. So to that extent, then what you should now say, okay, since you have taken, you swallowed that position, then let's do something quickly. So within a month or two, we should have been all out there to make sure that whoever needs to be sorted out is sorted out. It took quite some time. But there was a second thing that he also suggested about raising $15 billion for employment and all that. That I didn't quite agree with. Because we're already trying to recover from the huge ways and means.
The economic stimulus fund.
The economic stimulus fund. And we're already looking at 33 trillion naira that is in ways and means that we are looking how to going to manage and all of that stuff. So I didn't think that at the particular time would have going to help, because there is 1.57 billion that World Bank is giving to social inclusion and all that. That is positive, because it is actually performance based and improving the delivery of services in the area of education and health, and you can see performance. That is a correct one. Then the second one that I quite agree with is the 25 billion infrastructure fund. Yes, yeah. As long as that infrastructure fund, if it's a low interest rate, because the law, the fiscal responsibility at 2007 recommends concessionary. If it is concessionary and good rate, then you can go to we have company that is doing that. We have an infrastructure company that if it gets possession of that, it could leverage it with private sector funding, and then see what AFC has done, how much we put, 1 billion, look at how much, they have 15 billion. So we could use that sensibly to tackle this whole infrastructure deficit. Huge agenda there. And I will support that as long as it is for after all, the National Development Plan 2021-2025 expected us to raise $350 billion of a trillion, of which private sector is to bring 298 trillion. Yeah. So does that not tell you that that's where we are hoping to get the traction in our public finance?
Professor, you can speak to us on what Atiku called a comprehensive recovery plan, which he also tied to significant input from Nigerians. This recovery plan, looking at what President Tinubu is doing at the moment, Atiku is speaking against those plans just because Nigerians are not excited about the cost of living crisis they're going through. What do you think is wrong or otherwise with the Tinubu economic plans that is running at the moment?
Look, I think we need to take a longer term view of what is being laid out. For example, remember, I always say that as at the time a new government came in last year, Nigeria was actually in an intensive unit on a cliff about to drop. But now we have actually moved out of that cliff and we're in a recovery position. People need to understand that the fundamental of Nigeria that is not even being addressed is the unfortunate position of being an import-dependent economy and what that damage that has done to the entire macroeconomic framework. So once you continue to be an import-dependent economy and you don't diversify that economy to have alternatives other than just oil that is controlling 90% of your forex palaver will always make sure that all those price, look at the three things that he mentioned. He talked about inflation, which is price. He talked about high interest rates, MPR rates, this is price. He talked about foreign exchange, this is price. And all of these price are predicated on supply of dollar and the Nigerians' foreign exchange reserve capable of defending the naira, and you don't have enough supply of that dollar.
Right, very quickly.
So the thing is that it is a position that we have to fight, and his model of one thing first, it's not going to work because it's not a linear relationship. It's not even model. It's not multivariate. Not only that it is multivariate, but also non-dimensional. Then also, there are so many things that are happening as stagflation means that there's no linear relationship between the variables around inflation.
Very quickly.
It are multifaceted.
You say, and you're echoing what President Tinubu has said, that the economy is on the path of recovery. What exactly are those pointers?
Okay, let me just give you
very
one.
quickly, and Atiku's take on privatizing the refineries?
No, I've always supported refineries to be privatized.
Okay.
Always. And I never find any joy in what happened when Dangote paid 600 million for 2 refineries and the money was refunded to him. It was the most strategic error in that industry. Now,
signs of recovery.
The signs of recovery. Yeah. Now, you have monetary. We saw the chaos we have as at the time of having multiple exchange rates. Yeah. Now you have, for whatever reasons, we have now aligned those 2 rates. And what has happened is that once you align them, and then you remove the arbitrage that is fueling speculation. And speculation leads to hoarding. And then when you have hoarding and speculation, then you mean that you see it. You share fact today, tomorrow they are buying dollars with it. And so that is the very first step, that you have removed that arbitrage and then you have got them aligned. Now, and they kept steady. Well, what happens is that the CBN has pulled out a little bit from intervening and then using the inflow of foreign portfolio investment to maintain that momentum. Obviously, after a year, they want their money. So we'll still go and find the dollar to pay them. But in the meantime, we'll now have accretion to our reserves. As more money is coming, as that 1 million barrel a day is coming in, we're having more accretion to our reserve. We're having the strength to defend our naira. So that will be his work in progress.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But there's some stability.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Ken Ife is a development economist. Thank you so much for joining us on News.